Hope you're all fueled up. And I have the honor to bring you back to business on this Ecosummit. My name is Mattijs Slee. I work for Shell Technology Ventures. And I'd like to start off with, not this, but I guess you know what that means. I'd like to start off with a story that really motivates me. Why I do this, why I'm passionate about this. And that is the concept that the global energy system is going to double by the mid of the century if we kind of continue the way we do things. And that's mainly driven by population growth and increase in energy use per capita. In order to meet the Paris Agreement, achieved here, we will have to change our behaviors, the way we do things. And Shell has developed various scenarios to do this. Probably familiar to most of them. One of these scenarios is actually trying to work back from that Paris Agreement to a plausible outcome of the future in which we can achieve this. In that scenario, the Western world actually needs to throttle back its energy use, allowing other parts of the world to increase their energy use. And in the similar vein, at the same time, I should say, the renewable energy capacities is going to increase at the fastest speed we can. What it means is that the consumption in the US, for example, around 300 gigajoules, will have to come down to about 100. In Europe, we'll have to reduce our energy consumption again with about a third. And overall then, with the population growth in mind, that would bring us to a doubling of the energy system by the end of the century, which gives us more time actually to build up that capacity of renewable energy. But just to put this in context, I'm sure many of you fly regularly. A flight from Paris here to Singapore alone is 100 gigajoules. So there's some significant behaviors that we need to change, and I'm personally committed to do my, to contribute to this. Now let's tackle where we can actually make most impact. Largely, there are about 4 areas where we can address that would impact CO2 emissions. Firstly, that's around power generation. Second, around industry. Thirdly, buildings. Lastly, transport. Power generation is relatively easy. We already see solar and wind projects achieving life cycle costs on par or beyond or below fossil fuel. But the portion of the electricity in the energy mix today is nearly 20%. So that needs to increase, and that is relatively easy until 30%. Beyond that, that becomes more problematic. On the industry side, this is actually transition or transformation that's much more difficult. It has to do with the heat that is required for some of these process systems. You can think of heat furnaces in industrial systems or aluminium smelters. They are not so conducive to work with electricity. Buildings is an area that is much more easy to transform into a net zero or emission solution. For example, there are buildings today that are emission free. Lastly, transport, that's a bit of a mixed bag. We see personal mobility as an area that can transform relatively quickly. We all talk about electric vehicles today, albeit today electric vehicle penetration in the world is less than 1%, but still that growth is anticipated to grow quickly. But long-haul trucking, shipping, and air transportation, that is a sector that is much more difficult to transition. So where does Shell play in this? First of all, we try to improve the energy consumption and the energy efficiency of our own operations. And we try to move to ever increasing or CO2 lower energy sources, divesting parts of our heavy fuels business and investing heavily in gas. And lastly, we set up a new energy business in 2016. This is the focus of the new energy business is largely around renewable power and new fuels. Within that, you can think of integrated energy solutions, obviously solar and wind, energy storage solutions, energy access, that is basically bringing electricity often off-grid to to parts of the world that are not electrified today. Power trading and marketing. We already have significant positions, but we want to expand that. Shell is the second largest power trader in the US, for example. And lastly, connected energy. So that is actually building a customer offering behind the meter. On the new fuel side, we are investing in biofuels, hydrogen, transport for gas to transport. So you can think of LNG or future maybe bio-LNG means of transportation. Electric mobility and connected mobility. You can think of smart ways to do mobility, hailing services, for example. Shell Technology Ventures is part of the New Energies Group. We have several funds. We have oil and gas funds traditionally, which we still serve. We have clean tech funds, so largely investing in technology companies, and we have new energy business model funds that help us invest in a business model plays in the new energy space. We invest directly in startups. We also invest indirectly through funds. Our ticket sizes are between 10 and 20 million on average. And that is over the life cycle of the investment. So we never only invest in one series. We include all the investments we think we require until exit. Obviously, we like to invest in syndicates. We take minority positions, ideally with strong partners that can offer more than just the financial needs. Lastly, is a strategic fit and the financial return we're looking for. The financial return is, in my words, is sort of a health check of the company. Is it a company that can stand on its own feet, and is some of the strategic interest that we're really after. And a view of our portfolio. I will not dwell on all of them, but you can see some of the companies we invested in the first column in the oil and gas space, around the mobility space in the middle, and on the right hand side you see energies and new renewable power type investments. You also see Wonderbill here on the bottom. That's one of our digital ventures. Will speak after me. So this sits in our digital domain, which we're all also active in. This is a show to say that we like to see our companies grow, and we help our portfolio companies to grow through making as much connect to our businesses as possible. I think without exception, maybe one of the more recent investments, but largely all of our portfolio companies actually have business with Shell businesses. So we're the customer for these portfolio companies as well. This is an example of how one of our companies has grown over time. Started off with a small project, went into bigger project, and Glasspoint, this company, is now installing a 1 gigawatt solar thermal project in Oman. What I'd like the startups here to be aware of is that this year we'll hold another New Energies Challenge. The challenge will be an invitation to seed Series A sort of companies, startup companies in the new energies domain. They'll go through a selection process supported by Rockstart and Yes Delft, the two Dutch incubators. So the finalists are going into a mentor program with connected to Shell business focal points, and then a grand finale will be at the end, and an award will be given. So watch this space, startups. This is the URL. Make a note of this. From May onwards, we believe it's open for subscriptions. Lastly, this is my contact. I'm here with two colleagues. Raise their hands. They're over there. Please reach out to us if we have any questions we can help with. And obviously, startups, we're open for business. Thank you very much.